Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In my previous video, we were composting leftover pumpkins, left over from fall time, from Halloween, and that video got to be a little bit long, but I am back here in the dog run where I have my various compost piles. This first compost pile, I would say this mound is a solid almost a foot off the ground. This compost, come spring and summer, will be 3 years old. I have been gardening for come summer, for one full year now. And that there, to my amazement and surprise, that is an onion growing, or possibly more than one onion. I guess these started growing in my compost pile, but that is nothing new. Where that stick was, I used to have potatoes that started growing in my compost pile. I also, over here, had cantaloupe and or possibly a watermelon growing in over here in this little compost pile, but I had just put down the melon, and I literally had so many cantaloupe. But because we're out here in the dog run, this is the space I have to work with for composting, and it is not an ideal space if you're growing melon, squash, because this gets a lot of shade. However, this is the space I have to work with that is ideal for composting. So I attempted to have one compost pile be a hot compost, and there for about a few days, possibly a week, last summer, during the hottest part of summer, this compost pile did develop a mild odor. I think the temperatures were starting to get up there. However, I tried using branches as kind of a structure, but it's too high off the ground, and plus all of the branches and twigs kept it too well ventilated, so the internal temperatures never reached the ideal degree that you want with a hot compost pile. And this hot compost pile is mainly lawn trimmings from the lawn, and I would water this and really tend to it well. I would tend to my compost pile, and like I said, it did develop a somewhat, I would say actually just a fairly mild odor, but an odor from your compost pile, a really earthy, almost manure-like odor, tells you something good is going on in there. However, my attempt at a hot compost pile was too well ventilated, so this is also not a true hot compost pile. And so, like the rest of my compost piles, it is also a cold compost pile, and especially now during the winter, it is a cold compost pile. But come spring and or summer, I'm gonna either purchase a compost bin for hot composting, or I will be purchasing the materials needed to try to create my own hot compost structure bin. So coming back to what we were originally doing, so we are composting fall decorative pumpkins that was purchased fall time for Halloween, and we are one pumpkin down and we have 3 more to go. And I was using a large shovel to try and cut this into small pieces. It was not working so well because the randomness of me using the shovel was somewhat getting the job done, but as much as I was getting the job done, I was also making a mess and splatting bits of pumpkin everywhere that I would have to go retrieve, because I don't want to attract rodents, squirrels, mice, any vermin. I do not want. I want to bury my pumpkin, but I want it to decompose, and I also don't want it to take forever and a day to decompose. So using a large knife, and I am only using one hand, I am currently filming with the other hand. I should probably set up the camera so I can use both hands, safety first, guys, but I'm working rather slowly. So that is my precautionary safety measure, so I don't hurt myself, lop off a finger, lop off a limb. But to those of you, I recommend using both hands. But if you're vlogging, if you're a YouTuber, safety first. But I'm not going to say I'm an experienced kitchen I'm in any way culinary experienced, but I have used a knife to practically almost all my knife and all my life. Excuse me, sorry. I'm trying to film, cut up this, compost this pumpkin, and narrate to you guys. And so I might misspeak from time to time. So I apologize for that. But we're just working slowly and somewhat experienced with a knife. So I'm not too worried about my own personal safety, but to any of you out there, like I said, I would probably firmly grip everything with two hands and be very, very careful. But because I do know somewhat what I'm doing and working methodically and slower than I probably would if I wasn't vlogging, but I do want to focus on everything that I'm doing, but I also don't want to work so quickly that I miscut and lop off a limb. Although one hand is firmly gripping the knife, the other is far away with filming this. So, and my feet are also firmly planted. So I'm not too concerned that a tragedy will ensue, apart from this pumpkin getting chopped into fairly workable little pieces. But earlier I was using the shovel and I was getting my pumpkin everywhere and I was making a proper mess. So I'm much happier using the knife, and it's actually not as exhausting using the knife. So I'm going to oh my gosh, I've just been talking with you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me today. It's a beautiful winter day and a perfect day for preparing the garden for upcoming spring. And this pumpkin has an interesting smell. It has been sitting out since fall, since Halloween, since before Thanksgiving, and so so it started to degrade, but it's still in fairly good shape. Some of our pumpkins lasted fairly good, or a lot more than half of our pumpkins are in fairly good shape, but some of them, I think, when the trick-or-treaters came around, they were kicking and punching and sitting on the pumpkins. And so some of them didn't fare so well. They got bruised and kicked, and then the weather came and hit them hard. So some of them weren't in good shape. Others were. And so this is one of the pumpkins that, for the most part, was in good shape. And so cutting it up now to compost it is proving to be hard work. But using this knife is making the job go a lot easier. And so at this point, you guys, I think I am now going to get the shovel and we are going to finish the job, and maybe we'll even have room to fit the other pumpkin into this compost pile. But I don't think we're going to have enough room. I think we're going to have to move to the other compost piles. Hey guys, so even though I did everything I could to cut up the pumpkin into what I thought was really manageable little pieces, and then I would just have to further chop it up with the shovel, I guess I just expected magical results where everything would be teeny tiny. So whenever I add things to the compost pile, it's usually leftover bits of pepper. It's usually leftover bits of fresh lettuce and or any greens, a banana peel that is very easy to chop up into teeny tiny pieces. You guys, these pumpkins are really kicking my butt at the moment. I thought I had chopped up the pumpkin into fairly decent sized tiny chunks, and I even thought that at this point this is almost kitchen ready, where if I wanted to cook a pumpkin soup or pumpkin bisque, this is that I had chopped the pumpkin into very small manageable pieces. I proved myself wrong and neglected the other half of the pumpkin that was sitting below all of the chopped pieces. So when I went into dice, I do have a few good tiny bits of mashed pieces, but most of that sits on top of a glob of pumpkin that is essentially whole. So I think that I'm just going to have to be unsatisfied with the first two pumpkins I composted, in that the pieces are a lot bigger than is preferred for composting. You do not want to just lob an entire pepper, an entire pumpkin, an entire watermelon, or half of a cantaloupe into your compost, because it will take a very long time to degrade, and you will see better results in your compost if you can break things down into teeny tiny pieces like this. And even like with this, I would have chopped it up even smaller. However, the sun is going down. There's a small breeze that's picking up. It's getting a little bit cold. I'm going to try to do everything I can to just chop up the rest of this. But my biggest regret is getting out the shovel, because once that happens, dirt starts getting incorporated into the mix. And like I said, so even though I had chopped up everything very good with the butcher knife, Okay guys, so I made virtually zero progress with the pumpkins, but to my credit, I have one pumpkin composted in this pile. We have an onion growing, and I somewhat was able to water it. Amongst the peppers that needed to be composted, I put one of the pepper containers into this pile. We have everything covered up. I may water everything before wrapping everything up, but these large pumpkins are very hard to compost in a small space. So note to self, I need a larger composting structure for composting pumpkins. However, come spring or summer, I really am determined to just go ahead and buy one of those, a really nice hot compost bin, so that everything can be just more effectively composted, and so I can see a better turnaround time with my composting, because in the last 2.5 years, this first summer was the last summer was the first summer I was actually able to enjoy the compost soil that I've been working for the past few years. Actually, that's not very true. The first year I composted, my potatoes started growing from that compost pile that first year, but because of the location of the dog run, it is very shaded, very, very covered, and it's not ideal for, I guess, potatoes, melons, squash, but hopefully we'll see some progress. Maybe a pumpkin patch will spring up, but I'm not very hopeful. This doesn't get enough sun to probably support a healthy pumpkin patch, but I'm going to get this dug down, covered up, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a beautiful rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Like, subscribe, comment if you want, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.